Yeah, welcome all together. Welcome to today's GMG Academy webinar, Color Management Workflow from Design to Print, especially for the packaging area today. Before we start, some organizational points for the next half an hour. As you may recognize, you are all muted, but I already said you can write your questions in the chat window. Normally on the right side of your screen there should be a go to training window where you can write in your questions and I will answer it directly through the session. Also, the session will be recorded, so all the attendees who could not attend at this moment, they can watch it also after the session, or yeah, you also are welcome to forward those links you received then later that evening to some colleagues, yeah, if you may say, this is also interesting for you. What we are talking today about is, yeah, I want to show you color management and the workflow of the pre-press workflow from design to print from a more overview point. So if you already joined some other webinars or trainings of the GMG Academy, we sometimes go very deep in detail in color management topics. This is more from an overview side that also colleagues in the sales team or in other departments who are not the techie guys can also be strong in color communication and get the information they need for their daily business. So that you know who is talking with you, my name is Johannes Betz. I'm the head of the GMG Academy here since more than 1 year right now, and now some years in the industry, in the graphic industry. I've been a printing engineer before, especially a trainer also in flexography and gravure printer. So that's the reason why my specialty packaging, printing, and repro, and give this in trainings and on customer side. That's the guy who's talking to you today. And in the upcoming 30 minutes, you will get to know color management in different pre-press workflows, especially in packaging, as promised at the beginning. So I will show you at which the particular areas color management is working and how a good color management is set up for your own workflow and what you have to know there to communicate color in a good way. So you will see why you benefit of good color communication, because when you're around in the printing industry, there's a lot of confusion sometimes, or missing knowledge regarding color, because there are a lot of different techniques, suppliers, and so it's very important to have a good solid knowledge there to deliver good color services to your customers or suppliers, or what else. And especially I will give you an insight on our print production workflow training or workshop we have here at the GMG Academy in Tübingen and in Stuttgart in 2 weeks. It's an English course where we will really start from design, from the photography, and end up with really printing on a flexopress. So there we will show you the whole workflow, much more, of course, in deep than we can do this today in 30 minutes. So, but this will give you a first idea of what that training will be here in 2 weeks at the GMG Academy. When we talk about color management, it's sometimes very often like a black box. So if you ask customers, suppliers, or in your own company, which color profiles do we use, proof profiles, separation profiles, normalization, this is often like a black box. So not everybody knows what really we are using there, and so that's often an open point where you have to see what your company is doing. Also, how do we receive the files from the customer or agency is not already clear. So sometimes you receive all different kind of files. They are already converted into some output color space or not, or they're only tagged with an especially profile, like here on the image on the right hand side, you see this is in Illustrator. There you see this is already tagged with coded FOGA 39, but you could not be sure if the file is already converted. So this is always a big topic, how we receive the files from the agency and how to proceed with it. And so I wanna start with a question to all the participants here, because this is always a big topic. I want to know, how do you receive your files when you work with files, or how do you deliver files if you're a brand owner or an agency to further steps? So now you should see a question on your screen, and I just want to see a tendency how this is here with all the participants normally. So are there converted or tagged with the correct profile, or they're always mostly converted with the normal ISO coded volume 2. They are not color managed, so there is no profile attached, or you not really know if there's any conversion done, or you don't know normally, so no idea. That's the 4 options. And yeah, let's see what's the tendency here in the webinar room. So 70% have voted right now, 80%, nearly everybody has voted, and 81% voted. I will show you the result. So as we see, most of you receive or send files not color management yet, so it's a lot of manual work. Some of them are mostly converted with ISO coded volume 2, or they have already the right tagged and converted profile in it. So this is quite normal what we see in the packaging prepress, that most of the files are not really color managed, and or most of them are converted with ISO coded volume 2. That's quite standard in the industry here. Okay, it was good to get a quick overview how it's here with all the participants. So we see how we receive files in case of color management is very important. Also, what is the customer's target really in case of color? What does the customer wants to have? Is it always ISO coded volume 2? Is it something special? Some old prints? So there's also a bit of confusion what fits in those big black box of color management. Also, you have to know what are the steps from the final artwork until the plate making, the proofing, which system do we have, which media, which materials do we use, do we do a PDF conversion done on the files, and if yes, which one do we do, or is it still manual? Do we have dot gain compensation, and at which point in the process? These are all important aspects you have to consider, and then it's just printed, not at all. You also have to know which kind of press do we use, which parameters, which tolerances do that presses have to really communicate color in a really good and strong way on the market. So you see there's a lot of topics you have to care about, and you have to know that you can communicate and know the topic color in the printing industry quite good. But what is now that color management? So if you are not so familiar with color management right now, I want to give you some ideas what color management are about. So to simplify this, let's talk about that orange square over there. Let's say this is really a physical square, so you can touch it, and we want to photograph it and print it. And you measure firstly those square, and you get those RGB values here. Now you take camera, make a picture of it, and as you see, the RGB values are slightly different, but you get a different kind of visual impression of this orange square, because the sensor in the camera also has its tolerances and its differences to the measurement device you may use to measure those values. And of course, also visually, that already doesn't fit really because of lighting condition and so on. Now you want to judge those orange colors on a monitor, and with the same RGB values, you receive a completely different kind of orange. Also, if you print it and recalculate those RGB values, we have here RGB because the sensor working with RGB sensormetric things. Also, the monitor has RGB LEDs to reproduce the colors. Now you want to print it, you have to use CMYK and you convert it directly, but your printer also produces a different kind of orange. If you print on another printer, again, we have same CMYK values, but we have different kind of orange. So that's basically the point about color management. What we are doing right now, we have to see how our output device reproduce color. And out of this, we create so-called separation profiles or conversion profiles that is basically nearly the same to convert now between different output devices. So as you see here, that pink arrows are now our device profiles, device link profiles, or conversion profiles, or separation profiles. It's nearly different words for the same technology they are doing. So they manipulate now those values here to receive a same color image. So here is just a slightly change in the B value, but as you see here, CMYK, there are quite some changes to reproduce a constant color over all the devices we're using. So that's basically what's color management about, to create profiles and manipulate device-dependent values to produce identical colors on different outputs. Another example, because we talk about device link profiles. Why does this mean device link? Because the different devices, like here the camera and the monitor or the screen, are directly linked. So in urgent times, you normally go over LAB spaces. So firstly, you calculate from RGB to LAB, then see which LAB value will reproduce on your monitor which color. Today, we can go directly from RGB to RGB, or from CMYK to CMYK, also from RGB to CMYK, or from CMYK to spot colors. All is possible today. The main aim is to ensure same colors over different outputs and output devices, like here the camera, the monitor, or from litho to newspaper printing. And also, if we would have here flexo printing with maybe CM, Y, and brown and pink, for example, you also can convert today directly with a device link profile, or a conversion profile is the same from those two output intents. So the LAB values are have an informative character, more informative reasons, because they are easier to understand as if you have CMYK, or when you talk about spectral values, then it's more complicated. So but that's not all. We already talked about conversion profiles. So when we want to convert, or device link profiles, that are conversion profiles, when we want to convert from from a source to an output to ensure same colors, and therefore you can have custom profiles and industry standard profiles. So industry standard we already talked about, like for example ISO-coded volume 2 or Cracol. In other countries we have maybe other standards, but this is made mainly for offset on coated paper. You also have other profiles for uncoated paper and so on, but this is mainly for offset. So if you use other printing technologies, this is maybe not the best, and you need custom profiles, because also may have a completely different kind of substrate you're printing on, or different inks like spot colors. Then you have to create your own conversion profiles, and then we talk about custom profiles where you have from ISO-coded, for example, to your custom standard. So when we talk about color management, conversion is one big topic. Also norms, because norms are like standardized rule sets, like the ISO 12647, where is written how a printing process is defined, how we measure, how we see color, and the 12647/2 is especially for offset printing. There are so on described how an offset print has to be, that it's an offset mainly, and then further on we need references and print characterizations. That's what you see on the bottom here on the right hand side. This is now the FOGRAPH 51, the new characterization files, data. So you see here different CMYK values and regarding LAB values to it. So that's a characterization for the whole industry offset printing on coated paper with optical brighteners, in this case FOGRAPH 51. But if you have to make your own one, then you print test charts, make color spaces like here, and then create conversion profiles, and of course also proofing, because your customer or supplier may want to know how the color will look like later on the press before he prints thousands of sheets or meters. So you firstly want to know how the color will be, and also the printer needs, of course, a visual reference how he should print. So that's the reason for proofing, either if it's hard proof or soft proof. In some areas we already have soft proofs today, but still the hard proof, and especially in packaging, this is the main part to use hard proofs. So we talked about color management on a very basic overview part, and now after half of the webinar, we go over to a bit more workflow concentrated. So how is the workflow normally designed in the print production, especially for packaging? If we say BTASY is the customer, he wants to create, produce now those folding carton here, those box. And of course, he hand over the design to an agency. And those agencies, they look for images, make photos, create logos and text elements, and so on, build up on final artwork. So here we already have the different kind of color channels. Yes, maybe we also have some like cutting lines here, different elements. So, and high resolution images, this is all claimed under final artwork. But in some cases the agency is not sure in which printing technology the design is later printed on. So we have in packaging, mostly in every area, a pre-press section. They are more into the printing technology, and they do not a reproduction work. So they consider minimal printing dot, for example in Flexo. They consider spot colors, and making, of course, also on color proof. If we now have the color proof, we can go to print shop. If the blades are not made yet, then making the blades, of course, going on the press and print. Is it really that easy? Well, of course not. We forgot something. So especially what's with the customer's target we already talked about. So what does the customer wants to have in case of color? Also, what's with dot gain compensation? Normally, there where you rip your files, so where you create your dots, you see screening dots, you have dot gain compensation, because you always have a tonal value increase in printing. You have, of course, the conversion profiles we talked already about, the proof profiles, and maybe corrections later on the press, where the printer already corrects density values or something like that. So there's a lot of topics you have to consider, and the workflow is not just that easy as we've seen before. So I want to show you a bit more detailed workflow right now. Especially in packaging repro or packaging prepress, you'll find those days two kinds of workflows, how color is considered in the prepress section. And one of them is more manually based, and one of them is more automatic based. And start firstly with the manual way. Again, we have our agency. The agency sends right now the files and the color proof, mostly converted ISO-coded volume 2 we've seen, or it's not converted, or others we don't know. Send it to the prepress. The prepress now have to see, okay, which profiles are there conversions done? Not sure yet. Firstly, make a proof with ISO-coded volume 2. Because, yeah, maybe it's already converted or it's a standard in the industry, so let's make an ISO-coded volume 2 proof. But this is not really showing what we will print later on, because this is, as mentioned at the beginning, this is offset on coated paper, and it's not flexo on transparent film with white backing and so on. It's really just offset on coated paper. So in most of the cases, they have then a proof profile. So they made a test print on the print shop, measured it in, and created a proof profile. In the past, it was also only CMYK, so no spot colors. Today, with some tools, you can also use really spot colors in the design also. Like from GMG, it's open color, but yeah, and then they print out those proofs and they compare now to the ISO-coded volume 2 proof, what they think normally this is the customer's target. And then the manual adjustment starts. So you have to manipulate your files in very common, yeah, like Illustrator, Photoshop, or InDesign, or other solutions on the market to retouch PDFs and graphical artworks, and manipulate the color values until the files are as close as possible to ISO-coded volume 2 with the proof profile of the press, so your custom profile. If this is okay, then they of course send those files with the manual corrections to the plate making and later on the press, where the printer prints now those manual corrected files, and normally received then the ISO-coded volume 2 proof. And of course he could not really match the proof to the prints, because this is not really his condition. So at the end, the printer is not really satisfied because he could not reach the proof, and also maybe the customer has its complaints because, yeah, he thought ISO-coded volume 2 will be the color he received, but at the end it becomes a different color printed. Also, that manual work here is a lot of work. So you need some hours to convert manually with corrections in Photoshop or Illustrator or what else your profiles and your files here. Also, there's a lot of space for mistakes. So let's see now the other way. So I will call it more professional way, or it's more automatic way, where of course again our agency sends now the file ISO-coded volume 2 or others, still the same. Firstly here, there's also, to talk about this, there's also workflows where the agency already sends different files, like ISO-coded of course, but let's talk, to make it easier for those 30 minutes, firstly about that case. They'll send now the file again to the prepress, and firstly there is a normalization where in the PDF you could have different kind of color conversions and profiles in it, and so you want to make normalize to ISO-coded volume 2 or to other standards, and then there is a conversion done. So the information you have from your print shop, from your press, you created already conversion profiles to convert the files automatically to achieve ISO-coded volume 2, for example here, as best as possible on your output printing machine. So for example, flexo on transparent film with CMY and for example spot colors. So you may recognize here this image is not correct, because here we receive CMYK and at the end we have also maybe CMYK, so this should be CMYK to CMYK, not RGB to CMYK, but here the conversion is done, and it's done automatically, not manually. And out of those files with the correct proof profile, we can now create a really trustfully colorful proof, what we can send to the customer back and say, Mr. Customer, this is what we can achieve in a color way. With your chosen printer, with your chosen material, as good as possible to ISO-coded for 2, for example, or maybe also better. and in some cases Flexo, for example, could print more brighter, more colorful than ISO-coded Volume 2. But now the customer knows, of course, how we will print later on, and also the corrected file where we make the plates then goes on the press, and also the printer will be satisfied because he can reach now that proof because it's made with files they already converted with information from the press. So he will also be happy about this, like the customer at the end. And also we don't have so much possibilities for mistakes here in the conversion area, like with the manual conversion we've seen before. So that's like an automatic conversion is done. And in our trainings here at the GMG Academy, when we have participants from from the I would say illustration print and from the packaging printing, the guys from illustration printing are sometimes very confused how we work in packaging printing still, because in illustration printing it's more automatic or professional way than still in the packaging repro, because we have the manual work there. But of course we have so big bunch of substrates and printing technologies, it's not that easy. But today it's possible to also have the more professional automated way in the packaging printing. So how can you deliver best color services to your customer suppliers or what else to have a good color communication? Firstly, define what a customer wants to have in case of color, and also show him what is possible with his printing technique and his material he ordered for that particular job. So he could not have a very bright light color on a very dark brown corrugated board. So very good communication is important there. And understand, of course, what is color management. So start with the camera and with the print production. We mean here, understand your whole process, which separation profiles you use, which proof profiles you use, especially do you use separation profiles, and do you have proof profiles from your different print shops where the jobs are printed, other normalizations, which dot gain compensation you're using. All that stuff we saw in the last minutes here, very from an overview point, are important and are important to communicate. Would say communicate strong on the market, and with this you will gain advantage, of course, and be maybe the first one in packaging production. So as said at the beginning, this is a short insight of our workshop we have here in 2 weeks. And this is really popular workshop, so it's the premiere, the first time we run it. There are only 3 places left. So we saw, as said at the beginning, we have a lot of open points and sometimes confusion, so we want to show the complete production from design, photography until the print. And we will print at the second day here in Stuttgart at the Media University on this FlexoPress. You see here on the image there. So it's a reproduction CEI FlexoPress, CMYK job we will print together. So starting making designs, printing blades overnight, and then go on the press. So yeah, if you be quick, maybe you can catch one of the remaining places. Otherwise, it's also next year planned. If you need any further information, then just go on our website or write us directly. Also, if you're interested more in how do we create our own custom profiles, so we talked about if you could use ISO-coded Volume 2 as an industry standard, you have to create your own profiles. Then on 15th November, so next week, very close, we have from test print to characterization. Thereon we talk more in depth how you create your own profiles, how you do test prints, how to create test designs. Also on our homepage you will find more information about. Yes, hopefully I could got some points and hopefully some interesting things for you. So now, if there are any questions, we have some 1 or 2 minutes left, so please don't hesitate. Otherwise, if there are no questions, I think we've got a lot of information in those 30 minutes, so we have exactly now 4 p.m. here in Germany, so half an hour is over. And I don't see any questions so far. That's no problem. Hopefully you liked it. Also, if you not know yet, here are more addresses for contacting GMG. So if you have more sales interest, just write at info. If you have more technical topics with your GMG software, go on support@gmgcolor.com. We also have a support newsletter or Academy newsletter, you know already, I think, and trainings and knowledge, of course, just write us directly, academy@gmgcolor.com. Otherwise, on the right hand side, you will also find the direct links to the trainings we discussed today, and hopefully I will see one of you in one of our trainings. And from my side, I wish you a nice evening, a nice day, and see you again.